The biggest Batman book in history is coming out this week, but is that the only thing to talk about? What's up, everybody? I'm Stan, and welcome to Detail Comics, where we go over comics in detail. This is Preview Picks, where I go over the comic books coming out on Wednesday. The first thing that I want to talk about is independent titles. So Rick Remender and Matteo Scalera are returning on Black Science number 39, which starts off a brand new storyline, and I'm really excited to see where this goes. Overall, I find Rick Remender's independent storytelling to be pretty damn amazing, and I'm a really big fan of like Seven to Eternity, Tokyo Ghost when it was coming out. There's a lot of really good stuff that comes out from Rick Remender, and if you just found him due to Deadly Class, well, that's another one that he's got going on. But Black Science is a little bit more out there, and one I think more people should be aware of. Also, we have The Realm number 12, which deals with a, well, Earth that has been taken over by creatures from another dimension, almost like D&D mixed with the real world. It's an interesting concept, and overall the exploration of that has been pretty fantastic, and it's got some really cool characters in there as well, so if you have the opportunity to pick up The Realm, I would do so too. Then, the second comic book from Mark Millar in the post-Netflix world, we get Sharky the Bounty Hunter number 2, which is continuing a storyline. I don't necessarily know if it's quite as marketable as the Magic Order, which just feels a little bit out there as far as this kind of spacefaring bounty hunter storyline goes. It's not something that I'm really looking to pick up, but if you guys are into the Mark Millar stuff, this is something that you should look at. Speaking of Netflix, we actually have Umbrella Academy coming up with a new issue, and that's Umbrella Academy Hotel Oblivion number 6. So this continuation of the story that inspired the series that was written by Gerard Way and then ultimately ended up on Netflix, this is going to be that next evolution of that series. So it's one that if you guys have been jonesing for a little bit more Hotel Oblivion or jonesing for a little bit more Umbrella Academy, this is the spot where you're going to want to check it out. Another independent title that I'm really enjoying is Black Hammer Age of Doom, and the Black Hammer universe as its whole, as its entirety, this kind of concoction that's come out of the frame of Jeff Lemire's Mindscape. It's really exciting to see what this is doing, and there's even a planned crossover with the Justice League, which is going to be really interesting on its own, but the idea of Black Hammer and how these universes evolved is something that I'm really getting behind. So if you have the opportunity, check out Black Hammer. Also, Black Hammer Age of Doom number 9 drops, which is something that you're going to want to pick up. Next, we have Peter Cannon Thunderbolt number 3, which is by Dynamite, and it's written by Kieran Gillen, and overall it's evidently got some complex ideas, or it actually kind of knows that it's being a comic book. I haven't really had the opportunity to read Peter Cannon's Thunderbolt, but I have heard that it's actually a really interesting read, so it's something that I just really piqued my interest about, and something I'm going to probably pick up. I don't necessarily recommend it for anybody at this point in time because I don't know enough about it, but if it kind of intrigues you, then I would say give it a look while it's on the shelf. The other thing that I want to talk about is Spawn, which gets issue number 295, and we're creeping up on that Magic 300 milestone, and with Todd McFarlane being the original creator of Spawn, I can only imagine what kind of really cool homage variant covers we're going to be getting out of this. We've actually already seen some that are inspired by his original works on Spider-Man 298, Amazing Spider-Man 299, and then we all know people love to swipe Amazing Spider-Man 300, so we'll see where this one goes, but Spawn is one of the longest running legacy independent characters, specifically from Image. It is the longest in that respect, so it's one that definitely deserves our attention when it heads towards that milestone. Then to finish things off with independent titles, we have Archie releasing Sabrina the Teenage Witch number 1, which is going to be telling the story of Sabrina the Teenage Witch inside the Archie universe. The thing that really caught my eye about this is that this Adam Hughes cover that we've got over here, this looks like a piece of art that he showed off years ago. So it's possible that they either purchased it from him or it was originally for this project and it just took that long for it to come out. But overall, if you're a fan of Sabrina the Teenage Witch, which you might be, it's going to be a great spot for you to find that character. Now, as we dive into some more mainstream titles, we get Marvel's Extremists 2, which continues the Age of X-Man storyline, which is dealing with this kind of rogue squadron where they kind of arrest people for different crimes that violate the to use a really odd term, the prime directive of this utopian society. And overall, it's not something that I'm following along with. X-Men, Age of X-Man is just totally off my radar, especially with the news that we just got that I'll talk about in a different video. But overall, if you're following along with Age of X-Man, it's another one that you should probably be picking up. Also, we get Marvel Comics Presents number 3, which is continuing the storyline of Charles Soule and Wolverine through the ages as he's kind of obligated to defend the world from this truth, this demon. And then we also have other characters, and I believe Spider-Man is making an appearance in this one as well. So if you're a fan of the older school version of kind of split storytelling that came in Marvel Comics Presents, this is a great spot for you. And then we have X-Force number 5, which is written by Ed Brisson, and overall, I'm not reading X-Force number 5, but if you're a fan of X-Force or the concept of X-Force, it's a great place to find your characters. However, it's just not for me. One book that is for me, though, is The Terrifics, and that gets issue number 14. We just found out that it's going to be the last man standing amongst DC's New Age of Heroes titles, with The Silencer getting canceled after June of 2019. So we do know that Jeff Lemire is going to be departing the title, at least for a short period of time, possibly permanently. We don't really know, but overall, he's been the driving force behind this story, and hopefully the next person that's going to be taking over is going to be able to convince me to stick around. Otherwise, the time might be up on the Terrifics. Next, we have Justice League Odyssey with number 7, which is continuing the story of Darkseid, who is the last remaining new god after the explosion of the Source Wall and the return of Perpetua, or at least whatever's happening in Justice League, that is what's impacting Justice League Odyssey number 7. And Dan Abnett is trying to tell this story that is going to kind of wrap all these things up in this giant cosmic landscape as they head out into the Ghost Zone, the Ghost Sector, all these worlds that were brought back from Brainiac's planet that were encapsulated and just created this whole new sector of the universe. So if you're looking for a little bit more randomness and a little bit more unknown in terms of this Justice League storyline, this is where you're going to find it. But then over in Action Comics number 1009, we also get a taste of the unknown, and that is going to be the Rising of Leviathan. So Brian Michael Bendis and Stephen Epting, they're going to be telling this story that is going to be leading us into his event Leviathan, which we're going to get more information on, say, in May and June. So it's going to be huge. Action Comics is where he's been planting all the seeds in this. So if you don't necessarily like Brian Michael Bendis, you can avoid Action Comics, Event Leviathan, and everything else that's going on with it. But if you're intrigued, this is where you're going to go to find all those little details that hopefully are going to turn into something better. Making our way over to Marvel quickly, we get Superior Spider-Man number 4, which continues the tale of Otto Octavius in his kind of hybridized Octavius and Ben Reilly clone body, and he's defending San Francisco, and we also get this header that says that the War of the Realms is nigh. It's coming in a very short period of time. So Superior Spider-Man is going to be involved in this, just like every other character inside the Marvel Universe, and we'll see what Christos Gage has to offer in terms of storylines and how he can make those things interesting. But speaking of stellar storylines, we've got Black Panther still out in space. So the intergalactic Empire of Wakanda is still a main part of the storyline, as T'Challa is currently out there trying to really recapture the reputation of the Wakandan Empire. So if you haven't been following along with Black Panther, you can't jump in at number 10 because, oh my god, there's so much shit that has happened. So I wouldn't necessarily recommend it for people. However, I would give number 1 a taste again if you have the opportunity to find it, just to see if it might be something interesting to you. Then over at Flash number 67, we have the continuation of the Trickster, and he is going to be kind of taking various people to task, including people like Captain Cold and a bunch of other people. It's really a placeholder. After we get done the price, it's a placeholder storyline that's supposed to be setting up events before we get the year 1 storyline, which is going to be starting in Flash number 70. So it doesn't necessarily have my interest as much. I'm really waiting for that year 1 storyline, but if you're a Flash fan, then obviously you're going to have some fun with this. Next, we'll talk about Invaders number 3, which is throwing back to a bunch of early heroes inside the Marvel Universe, when we've got Namor, the Winter Soldier, Bucky Barnes, and then we've also got the original Human Torch and Captain America. And the Invaders is all about Namor's real drive to invade and conquer the Earth world, or at least create separation between the two. He's gone a touch mad, and Chip Zdarsky has been doing a really good job telling this story, so I'm excited to see where Invaders is really going to go. I don't necessarily know if it's for everybody, but if you're a fan of Zdarsky's writing, or if you're really intrigued by the idea of Namor going crazy and then trying to take over the Earth, this might be a spot for you. However, if you're into more like family fun, I would say Shazam number 4 is a better place to stop off. With Jeff Johns writing this one, you know that he has a passion for the characters because it's one of the few properties that he held on to when he separated from DC and created his own independent publishing company. Between Doomsday Clock, the Three Joker storyline, and Shazam was something that he really wanted to do. And I love seeing Jeff Johns writing a book, and overall, Shazam is just a really fun character to get into. So I'm excited to see where Shazam continues to go, and hopefully it's going to be just as great. Of course, if family-friendly is not your thing, you can dive into Hulkverines number 2, which is coming out this week, written by Greg Pak. And while the first issue really laid a lot of groundwork for this and brought these various individuals together, we saw the battle between Hulk and Weapon H. Now we're going to get Wolverine inside this kind of really chaotic situation. The Hulk has been infected, he's currently sick, Weapon H is on his way to try and hunt down the leader, and then Wolverine is kind of stuck in the middle. So I don't necessarily know where this one's going, but Greg Pak has this issue and the next issue to tell a pretty kick-ass story, and hopefully he comes through. Speaking of kick-ass stories, the time is running out on Heroes in Crisis, and we get issue number 7. So far, there's been a lot of misdirection, a lot of different clues that are trying to lead you in a general direction as far as where the hero and where the villain really go. Is Booster Gold the one responsible for the murder? Is it Harley Quinn? We've seen 2 different versions of these things, and ultimately, as we know more about it, it becomes a little bit more chaotic. The idea is that maybe Wally West is the one responsible, or maybe somebody different. Maybe it's the AI from Sanctuary. There could be a number of different things, and hopefully we're going to get a little bit more insight in this issue, probably on that last page cliffhanger that they're famous for. But a story that I'm really excited about is Fantastic Four number 8, which is going to deal with how Doom lured Galactus to the planet Earth and then was going to destroy him. And this is after he was converted from the Lifebringer back into the Planet Eater, the World Eater, and all kinds of stuff is going on. But Dan Slott is taking a bunch of different history and he's kind of smashing it together. He's writing a really good Doom, and overall I want to see where he takes the Fantastic Four in the future. So hopefully it's going to continue to be great. Then as far as continuing storylines, we get Amazing Spider-Man number 18, which is the Hunted Part 2. So we're going to see what happens when these robotic Kravens are going to be hunting down the villains as well as Spider-Man inside Central Park, inside this force field. How is New York City going to react? Is Wilson Fisk even going to care? And what is it going to mean for all these various characters? Who's going to wind up in a body bag, and who is going to wind up face-to-face with Kraven, or possibly his clone's son, sometime in the future? This is going to be an interesting one to follow. But not quite as interesting as Daredevil. Daredevil number 3 is coming out, and overall Chip Zdarsky has dove into the Catholic guilt aspect, and he created a situation where Matt Murdock is a murderer. And that is just a really cool concept that I hope he can dive into. Wilson Fisk is still a real thorn in his side since he is the mayor of New York City, and there's a lot of different things that are going on. But Marco Checchetto, however you say his name, he is doing a great job on the art, and one of the books that you can't miss. It's going to be a really serious contender as one of the best books for the year based on what people have been saying about the storyline, so I'm excited to see how it unfolds. Then we've got 3 more comics that I want to talk about. One, Dial H for Hero, written by Sam Humphries, is continuing this whole Wonder Comics storyline, or the Wonder Comics imprint from Brian Michael Bendis, and I mean, it's Dial H for Hero. It's not necessarily for me, but it could be a great introduction for a younger reader into a concept that I'm not necessarily familiar with. So the other one is Marvel Rising number 1, which is pretty much the same thing from Marvel. We've been seeing this Marvel Rising cartoon and online stuff that's been going on for quite some time, but they're finally putting it into print with Marvel Rising number 1. So if you've got kids and you want to get them into heroes, this is a great place to go. Though the last one we need to talk about is kind of important, and that's Detective Comics number 1000. DC is celebrating 80 years of Batman, and Detective Comics 1000 makes it only the second comic out of DC to cross that 1000 issue milestone. And while it's a really important milestone for the character, it really lends itself to the legacy or the duration of these characters and how they really became icons around the world, it's also a really heavy marketing ploy. So there's tons of variants. Every shop has their own individual variants, and if we learned anything from Action Comics number 1000, featuring the most recognizable superhero in the entire world, DC still has those available. They still made an excessive print run where they're able to offer brand new ones to retailers at really bargain prices to match up with Detective Comics 1000. So you've got to wonder how this is going to end. Because once we get out of Detective Comics number 1000, Detective Comics is still being produced 2 issues per month. Action Comics is down to 1 issue per month while Brian Michael Bendis is writing it. So in theory, within 6 months, Detective Comics is going to overtake Action Comics as far as the highest production run inside DC. Is that something they're going to let happen? Is 1,000 issues anything more than just a marketing ploy? But I want to know what you guys think, so hit me up in the comments down below and we can start that conversation. As always, if you like what you see, hit the like button. Don't forget to subscribe to get more news, reviews, and commentary on comic books and more.